For the fourth night in a row, marchers took to the streets of Minneapolis' uptown neighborhood as protesters rally against the shooting of Winston Boogie Smith by law enforcement. Rally-goers gathered along Lake Street near Girard Avenue near the parking ramp where Smith was killed as part of a protest. No, where Smith was killed. It's a poorly written sentence. The group moved down Lake Street and around the block before being moved back onto the sidewalk by Minneapolis police. The march then turned into a temporary standoff with protesters on the sidewalk while police kept the street clear for traffic on Lake Street. Then around 10:15 p.m., the protest group went back on the move to march down side streets in the neighborhood. Sunday's rally followed a mostly peaceful night on Saturday after 2 straight nights of arrests on Thursday and Friday. Winston Boogie Smith, as identified by family and friends, was shot by a Ramsey County deputy and a Hennepin County deputy during an encounter on the top floor of the parking garage in the 1400 block of Lake Street Thursday afternoon. A U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force was attempting to arrest Smith, 32, for a warrant on a felony firearms violation. BCA investigators say there is evidence showing that Smith fired his gun from inside the vehicle and spent casings were found on the driver's side. However, there is no body camera footage or squad dash footage of the incident because the marshals don't use them. The BCA says members of the task force weren't allowed to wear body cameras despite a change in policy at the federal level, allowing for the use of the cameras by officers and deputies on a task force. At the same time, social media postings seemed to show Smith was prepared for a confrontation with police. An internal document from law enforcement quotes Smith as saying he'd shoot it out if he was ever pulled over by law enforcement. And I got a note from Jeff who writes, for anyone wondering why U.S. Marshals were involved in Winston Smith's attempted apprehension, it's probably because they saw his numerous posts and videos about conducting a war on cops and inciting people to bring guns, bombs, and rocket launchers to protests. That's why they're a federal fugitive task force. This was not an exemplary fellow.
Right.
No.
Now, are we back in having to couch our language again? Well, that's no reason he should have died. No.
He made his choice.
He
made
died
his choice.
because he drew a gun on police officers.
No, not drew a gun. He fired at police officers.
At police officers.
And I have breaking news.
Yeah.
From Bob Fletcher.
Yep.
United States Marshals Service in Minnesota agrees to allow local law enforcement to wear body cameras on fugitive task force. This came across about 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
5 minutes ago. So that's changed now.
The play story in the Saturday Star Tribune was this fellow, the headline, "Family Wants Answers from Police." They answered you.
What's to
He
answer?
threatened the police.
You still cannot do that. You still cannot do that. And you're outnumbered. If the cops are after you, you're outnumbered if you're an army of one.
Court records show the warrant was issued after Smith failed to appear for sentencing May 19th in Ramsey County District Court. Well, maybe the family should provide some answers. Why didn't he appear as he was supposed to?
Or was he that day?
I like that's better. Yeah, I like that.
He had been charged with 2 felonies in November 2019 when officers found him in a White Bear Lake apartment with a loaded handgun in his car. As a felon, he was prohibited from owning a gun. At that time, he had a Hennepin County warrant for violating the terms of his probation for an aggravated robbery conviction for a 2017 incident involving his ex-girlfriend. So I think the family needs to provide us some answers.
Right. What's the
Were
history?
you aware of your son and brother? Officers arrested Smith at the apartment and found a 9mm handgun with a round in the chamber under the driver's seat of his Camaro. The complaint said Smith also faced a felony charge of fleeing police that was scheduled for trial in September, a year ago. Bloomington police tried to arrest Smith on 2 warrants after recognizing him in a Mall of America parking lot. When Smith saw the officers, he took off at speeds of up to 80 miles an hour with multiple police cars chasing him with lights and sirens activated. According to court documents, when Smith entered Highway 494 driving in the wrong direction, police ended the pursuit because of public safety. He was charged with fleeing police, a felony. His brother, Kidale Smith, said Friday that his brother has not been a perfect man, but the authorities ambushed him without giving him any time to surrender.
Or
B
escape.
as in B,
Or escape.
S as in S.
He would have run.
I'm getting so tired of this crap I can't see straight. We're supposed to now be walking on eggshells that this guy might have been just short of canonization in the Holy Roman Church, and the police ambushed him and shot him.
Didn't give him a chance.
B
Didn't give him a
as in
chance to
B,
do.
S as in S.
What didn't they give him a chance to do?
Escape.
Right. He wasn't going to explain himself because he couldn't. He was caught because he did bad things. The police are not coming after you
This
unless
is
you do
not a
bad
George
things.
Floyd situation.
No.
Not even remotely close.
Not even remotely close. This is not a George Floyd situation.
But you know what? It will be treated like that, don't you think? It already is.
Unless we do keep talking like this. If we keep talking like this, we're pushing back.
No one protesting is listening to us.
True.
Here's what has to happen. Get up, get the Minneapolis City Council up, please,
Okay.
and the areas that they represent. Who represents Uptown? I need to know that because I'll give you what must be done. I'll give you the answer of what must be done.
Okay, Minneapolis City Council.
Fletcher, isn't
Don't make me do this myself.
No, we're on her.
We're on it. Ward 4 is Philippe Cunningham.
I'm not looking for that.
Ward 5 is Jeremiah Allison. Cam Gordon is Ward 2.
Yeah, but I don't know what ward.
Jeremy
Uptown.
Schroeder
Jeremy Schroeder
is
Okay.
Ward 11, I believe, yes.
Well, Jeremy Schroeder, if you represent Uptown, you need to call a press conference. And you need to say these protests are ridiculous. This was an entirely justified incident, and we have no evidence whatsoever to suggest that it was not justified. So these protests are meaningless. And they're being conducted by people who really don't care about that fact. That's a fact. But they've stopped believing in authority. The protesters have stopped believing in the BCA and the Minneapolis police and the sheriffs and the marshals. They don't believe in it. So they're not going to believe anything they're told by the BCA. I'm going to choose to believe the BCA is not lying to me.
Right? Right.
They had a confrontation with a career criminal who fired at them. And he had been inciting violence, apparently, allegedly, on social media posts. As the emailer pointed out, if you're wondering how the marshals were onto this fella.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if he did indeed post that, and that was a foreshadowing of how he was going to go out if he was caught by police, then that's a huge step, not in his favor, in the cops' defense. So the protesters need to take that into, even though they won't, they need to take that into account. Mm-hmm. He said he was going to go out in a blaze of glory or shooting at cops.
I have no doubt that he shot at the police.
That part of Uptown is Ward 10. It's Lisa Bender.
Lisa Bender.
Oh, I apologize.
But then,
I'm
Lisa
sorry.
Bender, you hold a press conference and you say these protests are a bit foolish. You're protesting a completely justified act of law enforcement. This is pathetic. Every case now will be George Floyd.
Right, right. And that's not the case. They were not leaning on his neck, depriving him of air.
No, they were not.
And what outlet outside of us is going to push back? Because I haven't seen hardly any of it.
Lisa Bender sure as hell won't.
No.
Right.
Nobody from the salon and nobody from the mayor's office has said, "Hey, people, what are you doing? This was a bad guy who did a bad thing, and this is what happens when those two come together."
I haven't seen any pushing back, but the news I've been watching has made it very clear that he fired at officers from the car first.
Right.
So that's
Okay, good.
We do have that going for us.
Okay, good. Because keep this in mind, too, ladies and gentlemen. We're not even into summer yet.
Well,
This is going to be, I mean, we thought last summer was bad. If this
but this needs to be nipped in the bud.
but it's not going to be, Joe. We're not capable. It's the four of us.
Lisa Bender's the one who's not capable.
No,
Jacob Fry's not capable.
no.
The salon is not capable. They should be out there defending law enforcement when law enforcement needs defending, because they're sure as hell out there bitching about law enforcement when they deserve bitching at. But you never hear them praised.
According to the Minneapolis City Council website, when I was first elected to serve Ward 10 in 2013, I heard loud and clear from our community a clear desire for change. stronger worker protections, more housing options, expanded emergency shelter and protections for renters, safer streets for all users, more dedicated action at the local level to racial injustice and climate change. Safer streets for all users.
Well, they're not safe right now.
Right. She's not doing her job.
Not doing her job. No voice of authority has defended the activity of the law enforcement officers involved. No one has pointed out that this, by everything we know, this certainly appears to be a well-justified situation. We're not hearing that. And so the city will continue to fester. The city will continue to deteriorate.
Do you think that them saying nothing says something? In other words, had this not been a justifiable act by law enforcement, they would have been the first people out front and center.
Well, you are describing an interesting point, and
Thank you.
And isn't it pathetic
What'd you
that
get
we've
today?
come to the point where we would have to surmise that their silence is telling us that they have nothing. They didn't run to a park, did they?
No.
They didn't run to Powderhorn Park and say, "See, this is why we want to defund the police department."
Right.
Yeah, you might be onto something.
Their silence is telling us that they know that this was justified.
But they don't have the wherewithal, the competence, the means, and the ideology to take that public in an effort to quiet the city.